Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's telesummit. Here I'm with my buddy, my friend, Dr. Judith Swack from Healing from the Body Level Up. And she is just a magnificent colleague and participant in life and has so many healing talents. And she really helped me get over a hump. And when I got over this hump, I went, wait a minute, we've got to tell the world about this. So tonight we're going to talk about healing the top 5 patterns that cause you to absorb other people's problems, illnesses, and symptoms. Welcome, Judith.
Thank you. So Lynn, tell them about the month of suffering of arthritis.
So in the month of January, my hands started to just become crippled. It kind of started in my right index finger, and then it would move over to the middle finger, and then it would go to the other hand, and it was starting to creep up towards my wrist. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And so I'm digging and digging and digging, and I cannot figure out what is going on, except I know that one of my best friends is having arthritis problems. And I just knew it had something to do with that, but I never could find the little piece, that little nugget I'm always looking for as to why am I picking this up from one of my best friends. So of course, first person on my speed dial is Dr. Judith. And she came up with this brilliant plan. And literally 5 minutes when we were done, all of the pain was gone. And I had suffered with this for like over a month trying to figure this out.
Yep, one session, she was done.
Yep. And so I realized that, look, this is important because if I'm feeling this and I'm picking up on this, how many of my clients, how many of the people in my mentorship program, how many healers that are out there, how many other people are just absorbing other people's symptoms and illness? So I went back to Dr. Judith and said, hey, you've got some good stuff here. And she's like, oh, this is really just for healers. I'm like, no. This is for everyone.
And then I thought, oh my God, you're right. So of course, she's always right. So I had to do what she said. So I thought about it. We put together this package. I said, Lynn, it's going to take more than one session to teach them the major issues. Let's do a 5-session webinar. So we did. But I'll tell you, just today, I was working with a client. She has a school. And we were clearing her of some pattern. And she said, oh my God, this causes me to absorb everybody else's problems and symptoms. And it's interfering with me, running my school. And I said, well, yes, it's a general problem. In fact, just tonight, I'm going to talk about that. So, I mean, really, it's everywhere. It's an issue.
It is. And a lot of people don't even realize they're doing it. So listen to what we have to say and listen to the kind of the descriptions of where we're going to go in this series, because I have a feeling that a lot of light bulbs are going to be going off for people. You may not think you're doing it, but I'm sure it's there.
Well, again, in healing from the body level, up methodology, we assume that you have a soul and it's in the body, but you also have an unconscious mind and a conscious mind, and you have an energy field, right? So you have 5 levels of being, and things go on that you're not consciously aware of because you got 4 other levels running. So your conscious mind doesn't know why you're having symptoms and things like that. And the issue is not at the conscious level, it's in the other levels. So you need to be able to find what's running and then treat it. So healing from the body level up, I have a menu of over 400 different types of patterns that run at the different levels. I have a menu of 52 different techniques that will clear the right thing with the right energy antidote at the right level. And so, you have to have good menus. So that's what I'm doing for the last 40 years, which is why she calls me up and I go, oh, I know what that is. Boom, I pull out that menu. We treat her. She's done.
And you have to remember, guys, in case you haven't been introduced to Dr. Judith before, she's actually a scientist and a healer. That's what I love about it, because she doesn't just get off on the willy-nilly of, it's a chakra problem or something like that. She has scientific basis behind a lot of the stuff that she does. And you guys know that when I work with the bodies, I'm always looking for the science as well as the woo-woo. So we're kind of 2 peas in a pod when it comes to that.
Yeah. So speaking of woo-woo, So I have a PhD in biochemistry and years of postdoctoral training in human immunology. And from there, I learned a bunch of different skills and then developed a whole method and added things and invented things and so on and so forth. But I've always been psychic too. And my mother's psychic. My father, when he was 80 years old, confessed to me that he's psychic too, and then laughed and said I did a pretty good job of hiding it, didn't I? But so I was used to being psychic. It wasn't an issue in the family, and I didn't really think much about it. But when I was 30 years old, just a baby, I took my first NLP training, neuro linguistic programming. And in that training, you do an exercise. It's called perceptual positions. And it's like an empathy exercise to help understand people better. So you understand that you're in your own position, looking out of your own eyes. That's first position. But if you want to know how somebody else's feel, you walk a mile in their shoes, as it were. In other words, you float up out of your body, your consciousness, and you sit down into their body and you become them, and you look back at you out of their eyes in their body. And I refused to do the exercise. And they said, why? I said, because I'm afraid that if I go in there, I won't be able to get out. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, what do you mean? What am I talking about? Why don't you know what I'm talking about? I'm not going in there because I may not be able to get out. And so I didn't do the exercise. They were like, they didn't understand me at all. But you all know what I'm talking about. So that was my first recognition that other people don't know what I'm talking about, but that I'm not doing this because I intuitively knew I didn't want to get slimed up. You know, I don't want to sit down in their body and come out all slimy. Not doing it. So
You guys have heard me talk about channeling. Everybody always wanted me to do all this channeling. It's the same thing. I'm not going to have some entity drop into my body. I can have that conversation without him dropping into me. There's no reason why you need to do that.
oh yeah, I have those abilities too. That was kind of interesting. I always had them, didn't realize I did, and finally came to conscious awareness during a very dramatic event, which brought it to my attention. But I talked to another psychic, and I said, I don't like it when they take over my body and speak out of my mouth. That's rude. And she goes, well, you can ask them not to. So I did. Don't do that anymore. And anyway, so then I have an angel, my right side angel, who talks through me, and I have a left side guide who helps. And so my angel would get excited. He would take over. I said, don't do that. So then instead I'd be talking to somebody. He'd grab my chair if he got excited and go like this. So I'd be talking to somebody, and all of a sudden I'm going like this. I said, don't do that either. I promised that if he had something to say, I would hear it and I would channel it to my client at an appropriate time, but he didn't have to grab my chair. So he stopped doing that. So anyway, boundaries, right? So what really enabled me to fully expand as a healer was when I took Mary Louise Mueller's training in applied kinesiology and craniosacral polarity therapy. She pulled something together, and she had developed a technique called the boundary tap. Now, Mary Louise Mueller is the one who taught me muscle testing to access the soul's deepest wisdom to lead the healing. And I thought, oh, great. The client's deepest wisdom will lead the healing from now on. And I never looked back. And so all my clients, we muscle test to talk to their deepest wisdom to lead the healing. And what she said was, you need to set energetic boundaries. You need to have boundaries at the body level, the unconscious level, the conscious level, the soul level, and the etheric levels. And a boundary is an energetic membrane where you know you're here, that's you, and this is you, it's your personal space, and then that's not you. Whatever's out there, whatever's outside the membrane is not you. So here's you, and here's them, or here's that, or whatever. And Mary Louise Mueller said you have to set boundaries by context. So boundaries with this, boundaries with that. And she gave us a technique, which we have in the first pre-recorded session of this series. We go into great detail how to set the boundaries. And it's not an intellectual thing. You can intellectually think, oh, that's their problem. Yeah, but you walk away feeling slimed by them because you took it in the unconscious level. The conscious level didn't protect you. So that's what we taught in the first session. That was really important.
What are some of the strangest things you've seen people absorb from other people?
Ooh, I had this Enneagram 4 client who was a therapist. And every time she came in for the first 4 sessions, we'd muscle test and ask, is there more than one soul occupying this body? And because if I'm talking to the client's deepest wisdom through muscle testing, I want to talk to one soul in one body and know who's talking to me. Well, 4 sessions in a row, she had more than one soul occupying her body. She was picking up the ghosts that had accompanied her clients to therapy sessions.
I don't mean to laugh. It's, when you're over the other side, you can laugh. It's funny, but when you're in the middle of it, it is not fun at all.
Then I had a client who had developed diabetes symptoms, and she went to the doctor and they told her to, restrict her diet and lose some weight. And then they gave her some medication because the diabetes was out of control. The blood sugar was terrible. And this is normal medication that should work in anybody's body with diabetes. Did not work for her. So she couldn't control the diabetes. So she comes in and it turns out it wasn't hers. It was her son's. He had type 1 diabetes from the age of, 7. And he went off to college and he kept going into diabetic comas because he wasn't eating properly and regulating without his mother there to watch over him. And so she ended up taking on, so she, of course, would freak out every time she'd get a phone call that he'd been rushed to the hospital. And so she decided to what? Unconsciously, she decided to take on his diabetes into her body in the hopes that it would heal him. Then she had diabetes symptoms live that couldn't be treated. And it didn't actually help him either. So in the end, he had to come home.
But isn't that how most people, like just the general public, not even the healers that are on the call, that they absorb this because they have kind hearts and they're like, oh, I feel so bad that this person has this, or, my husband, my kids, my dog, my whatever. And then literally it's just like a sponge.
Yes, but they're not consciously aware they're doing it.
Exactly.
But energetically they do. And the symptoms show up in their body.
So what makes people vulnerable to this then, other than just that soft part?
So for example, that client who sucked up her son's symptoms, which didn't actually help him and made her sick, that's great. She was an Enneagram 9. And
can you explain Enneagrams? Just a short little thing for people that don't know what that is.
Yeah, the Enneagram is a personality typing system, and there are 9 different types. And we bundled a package with this webinar of the description of the 9 different types and how to upgrade code in the types, the most aggravating layer of code for each type. We gave you a discount. We bundled it with the package. Yay. So anyway, she's an Enneagram 9. The Enneagram 9 are the peacekeepers, the mediators, and they are programmed in their operating system to merge into other people. Well, there's a boundary violation right there because this is you and then you merge into them. Whoa, there's no boundaries there. So she merged and tried to, suck back his stuff, and she showed up in but the Enneagram 4s, which are called the romantic or the tragic romantic, sometimes they're called the individualist. The Enneagram 4s, they're a heart-centered type. There's three triads. There's 9 divided into 3. There's the heart-centered types, the 2, 3s, and 4s, and the heart is the emotional center. So they lead with their heart. Then there's the 5, 6, 7s. These are the head points. They lead with their head, which is the thinking center. And then there's the gut points, the 8s, 9s, and 1s, and they lead by doing. They do things before they even think about it. They're often doing things. So anyway, the 4s are the heart-centered types. So they hold boundaries the worst. So the definition of compassion in the 4 programming is, I take your suffering into my body to process it for you. That's their definition of compassion.
So that's an example of an Enneagram wound or some Enneagram code that you would help them to upgrade and get rid of.
Definitely upgrade that. There you go. And then the Enneagram.
So all of these are listed on both the sales page on the body channel as well as on HBLU's pages so that you can read what's in these, but also the link to learn what your Enneagram personality type is on there. So you want to take that test so you can identify before this program begins, identify what type you are, because she's going to be talking about these types and you're going to want to know, okay, how does that relate to me?
So that's one cause. And the Enneagram 2s, they have a definition of help. Help means I do it for you. I do everything for you, including take your pain on to process it in my body. That's their distorted definition of help. So yeah, you have to process those layers of code that cause those compulsions. But you know what else causes people to take on other people's crap? Religious brainwashing.
It's not just religious though, isn't it cultural as well?
Well, I'm going to talk about that too, but I'm going to talk about religious brainwashing because martyrdom, right? I sacrifice myself to please others. I sacrifice myself for others. I martyr myself. It's a holy thing. And one of the ways I do that is I take your pain into my body and process it for you. And I'm suffering and I'm so holy.
The reason why I bring up culture though is things like, I know I was a Viking in one of my lifetimes, and it was, that was the best thing that you could do is die in battle and be that martyr in battle, right? So that wasn't necessarily religious, but it was cultural that was the way to go. You didn't want to die at home in your tent. That wasn't a good thing.
Right.
See, this is why I irritate her, because I give her little things and she's like, darn, how does that fit in my program? Maybe I got to go look at that.
Well, I mean, the difference is the Vikings martyr themselves by getting themselves killed to protect others, but they don't take on others' pain into their body. So it's slightly different. But still, it's a bad thing.
It's a martyrdom.
It's a martyrdom thing. Martyrdom is bad.
So we already talked about the first session. So the first session you would receive is one that's pre-recorded. It's on Zoom, and you'll get to see Dr. Judith talk all about it. But the next 4 are going to be live, and they begin in April. I think it's every, what day of the week is that, Judith? April 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th.
Thursdays.
Okay, every Thursday for 4 weeks. So just a real little synopsis. And again, there's descriptions on both of our websites, but just a quick synopsis of what's in session 2. You talk about these Enneagram wounds again. So what is that?
Session 1, I only did the one Enneagram wound from the Enneagram 7 that was yours. But I'm going to do 3 layers of the Enneagram wound in the next session. I'm going to do Enneagram 4 and 2 and probably 9, what I talked about. So, the merging, we're going to stop the merging thing, which is how you break your boundaries from the inside. For the 2s, we're going to stop you from helping by taking on people's crap. And by the 4s, we're going to stop whatever the compassion means. I'm going to take on my client's ghost for them.
Well, and let me just say this, I'm a 7, but just because I'm a 7 doesn't mean that I might not jump to the 4 for that one particular thing. So all of these can be relevant to everybody, even if you find out, I'm a 9 or I'm a 1 and she's not doing anything with 9s and 1s.
Well, yeah, I didn't mention this, but in the Enneagram system, the 9 different types overlap each other. So you will overlap 5 out of 9 of the types directly. So when I do a layer of code for one of the types, you've got, a 5 out of 9 chance that it's in your code too. And if not, you've got something similar, so you can do a parallel piece of work with it. Because as I said, look, it's in all, we have all these different things in these unrelated types, but the same kind of theme. So
when is this code downloaded? You make it sound like we're a computer with this. So
yeah,
when do we download?
It's horrifying. You need an ego structure to sort of correlate between your soul and your body and the external reality to run your operating system. And it's downloaded at conception when the soul comes into the body. But unfortunately, and I'm still trying to figure out why or how exactly, when the operating system gets downloaded, it gets downloaded with bugs in the operating system that cause these compulsions to do things that really screw you up. So I've mapped the bugs in the operating system. I've got 400 pages of code. So I have the diagrams. I've already, read the code. So when somebody comes in, I don't have to pull it out fresh from their code. I just go, oh, what layer of code is it? Here it is. Does yours have anything different to show me? And it's like, probably no. And we just process it with a technique that I actually developed with a colleague of mine. Yep.
So session 3, what are we going to do in that? You have blocked access to emotions. How does that create this problem?
Well, people are afraid to feel their own feelings. You ever notice that? Is that a common problem with everybody? But it turns out that if you're afraid to feel a feeling, and the fear is in the form of a phobia, like you're actually a phobic, I'm afraid to feel anger, right? I'm afraid to feel shame. What happens is that fear blocks your normal energy processing mechanism for releasing fear in your body or releasing shame, because it's blocked now. You got a phobia on it. It's not flowing properly. It's not releasing. And when you have a block in the flow, then you tend to pick up other people's negative emotions too, because it breaks your boundaries. So then you end up accumulating this toxic negative emotion. I think of it as a septic tank in your body. And not only are you carrying yours, but you're carrying other people's that you've absorbed, and it's causing sludge, and it's toxic, and it's not leaving. I mean, I think you've heard the term depression is anger turned inward. Well, that would be a blocked access to anger pattern in my terminology, because it's stuck in there. It's not draining.
But on the other hand, one of the things that I find is, especially with depression, it's like when you have depression, then it's you almost feel like you're a Hoover vacuum sucking in depression from all over the world.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Exactly. And so I see that a lot in people, especially with depression.
Yeah.
All right. And in session 4, you have blocked access to problems. So we had blocked access to emotions, now blocked access to problems. What is that about?
Well, you know how I had this man come in with his wife. I was testing him on my intake form to see what patterns he was carrying, because she was complaining about him. And he muscle tested negative for a whole bunch of things. And she started shouting that he's lying to you, Judith. He has all these things. I know he does. And he's lying to you. And he, of course, stands like all, no, there's nothing wrong with me. It's my bitchy wife. So I just stand up and go, oh, well, let me muscle test you and see if you have a phobia of admitting you have a problem. And he did. Yep, he had a phobia of admitting he had a problem. So he wouldn't admit it. Wouldn't. And she could feel it, made her scream. But I turned her and I'm like, good job. Thanks for helping me find this. Then I treated him for it.
I don't want people to get afraid of the word phobia, though, because, there are a lot of times where I don't want to kind of admit something's wrong. I mean, I'm one of those people that kind of hold that kind of stuff in,
Well,
and you might not think it's a fear, but it may still register as a fear when you're testing this.
It is a fear.
Well, but consciously, I'm saying people out there may not think it is, because they're trying so hard not to have this be found, right? Because they're buried.
That's true, because phobias run at the body level.
Exactly.
But what is the result of not addressing a real problem?
Bigger problem.
What's the result of that? You keep the problem.
Yeah.
Well, my whole approach to life, my whole approach to my work, the purpose of my work is to alleviate unnecessary suffering. So step 1, you have a problem, let's find it. But speaking of phobias, we did a very good description of phobias and how to clear them in our free COVID-19 phobias webinar, which is still up on my website and still up on your website. So I'm going to recommend that if you haven't seen our lovely and exciting Clear the Most Common Phobias Related to COVID-19 webinar, which I have to say was a masterpiece and quite delightful, definitely watch that, if for no other reason than to learn how to clear phobias. Yeah.
And what about number 5? Number 5 is patterns that cause self-sacrifice. Oh my goodness, that just
Well,
drives
that's
me
what I
nuts.
just talked about was the martyrdom crap.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So what are these sessions going to be like? Because you have some live demos for people that are going to kind of be there that you're going to work with so people know how to do this at home.
Mhm.
So walk us through it a little bit.
Okay, so just like I did with the Enneagram webinar series, I said, okay, today I'm going to do these patterns. And then I sent out an email a week ahead and said, I need volunteers. Then people emailed in and said, I'd like to volunteer. And then I screened them. And then if they had the pattern and I thought they'd be a good volunteer, we put them on the screen. So live, they're on the screen and we put up the pattern and we literally treat them live in real time, a real session, to clear them of that particular pattern. Now, what I have found in several, I've found this for many years, and so I've made some products that do this. When I treat somebody live in real time for a problem, and I do it with enough detail, like it's a real session, people who watch it afterwards, if they have the same problem and they do the process along with the demo, they will clear the problem also. And I've seen this repeatedly. For example, I have a CD on my website, Heal the Inner Critic. It's a half-hour long. 75% of people have this hypercritical, nasty voice that swears at them in their head. Drives them crazy. Half an hour. You listen to that. You go along with the live demo. It's a CD, not a DVD. You say the prayer along with the people. You clear. My father said, Judith, you have to get this out there. It's a mission of mercy. I said, okay, Dad. I cleared him. He's like, do it. So that's how it works. Each of these patterns, I'm going to demo live, like a live real session. We're going to cure somebody of something. Anybody who watches this afterwards, who has this, will clear by watching it and participating.
One of the things that you use throughout these processes is muscle testing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we put up it's a video, isn't it? A video on our site and on Judith's on how to do muscle testing. So if you participate in this, again, you want to look up your Enneagram type, and you also want to look on muscle testing to make sure that you're able to do and follow along while she's doing this. Now, if someone doesn't say use muscle testing, but they use a pendulum or something else, is that okay? Or they need to use muscle testing?
A pendulum will answer the same way. It'll read the body yes and no. The reason that I hesitate to use pendulums is they can be run by entities, and then you're getting answers from an entity that's sending you in the wrong direction. So if you're going to use a pendulum, you have to preface every question with, we command the truth of you and all entities and parts of you in the presence of God of the white light. And they have to check for deception to make sure it's not an entity running the thing. But if you are willing to just add the extra verbiage, then you can trust the pendulum. I also have people who purify and decontaminate the pendulum by smudging it or something before they use it. But pendulums are more problematic than just using your own body.
And just so everybody in my group knows, basically she still makes me muscle test, even though most of the time I got an answer before I actually give her the yes or the no. So you're still going to do it because this is how Dr. Judith wants it.
Yep, I'm comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with anything else. Humor me. Thank you.
So anything else you want to tell them about the series? It's $247. Well, I guess we never said that. And again, it's going to be 5 sessions. The first one's pre-recorded. The last 4 are live, so you get to do it along with her. And it'll be 4 Thursdays in April.
Okay, now somebody just asked, so usually when you self-muscle test, I like to use the standing tilt test. You stand up and you face north-ish, and you ask your body, show me a yes. You tilt forward. Show me a no, you tilt back. If you tilt in any other direction than that, you have a blocked energy field, and that needs to be treated. And you have to call my office. I have to refer you to somebody. That's its own problem. But if you're tilting fine, and it's working, then just work along with us.
I know there's people that also use their hands to do the muscle testing and things like
We
that.
put a link to the instructions for self muscle testing with the different ways. Yeah.
When we post this video, we'll go ahead and put the link to both her site as well as mine, but hers is hblu.org, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thebodychannel.com. And you can purchase it from either location if you're interested. You can also go to Judith's site if you're interested in getting a session with her. It sounds like she's pretty booked, but she has practitioners that she has taught all over the country. Is it the country or the world?
Country, I would say.
All over the country that have all been trained in using these 400 pages of codes as well. So she can definitely refer you out to somebody who's kind of a specialist in a particular area that you may need help in.
Yep. I'm really happy that I've got other people who can do this and it's spreading. Yay.
It's very good. Judith is my go-to person. So that's one of the reasons why, we've done a curses seminar together. What was the last one we did?
The war over Tango.
Oh, war over Tango. Yes, that was a huge one. So the funny thing is, and somebody wrote that you and I should be a comedy team in the comments earlier. The funny thing is, when something occurs in my world, I go to her and then usually we end up doing a show on it. I'm like, well, if I'm having this problem, I know everybody else is too. So let's go have a show on it and let's see who needs some more assistance.
Well, this is really important because I tell you, I have people come to me who say, I'd like to be a therapist or I'd like to be a healer, but I burn out. I take on people's stuff. I end up so tired at the end of the day. I can't tolerate it when people cry or they're upset. And I just don't have the heart for it or the stomach for it or whatever. And I think, what a shame. Here's a person of great talent and the world needs healing. And it's just a simple question of boundaries. So I say, don't worry, you go get trained and I'll teach you how to set boundaries and you'll be fine. Like, okay.
Judith is one of the hardest working people I know. You would never be able to guess her age. I promise you that. But she works 5 days a week, well, 5.5, because she works Saturdays too. And she works from like 8 a.m. to like 7 p.m. So working with people to get them out of their problems. So she is very dedicated and has a plethora of information at her fingertips. So I am greatly appreciative of my friend, Dr. Judith.
Well, thank you, Lynn. Thank you so much. I love teaming up with you. I love you like waking me up and going, Judith, get this out there. And I'm like, okay, Lynn, good idea. Right? Lynn is the inspiration and I'm the sweat.
Well, anything else you want to tell them about the series before we go?
Tell all your friends. Remember, the whole world needs this. Right? Don't be picking up other people's stuff. Don't be picking up other people's reactions. Don't pick up their symptoms. Don't pick up their emotions.
Especially in this time, it's very chaotic. There's lots going on. You got a pandemic. You got people that are in a lot of fear. You've got war energy around the planet. I mean, there's so many different energies that so many people I know are just being overwhelmed by.
Think about this. It just occurred to me. Let's look at men-women relationships. So men are trained cultural brainwashing. They're trained to not express their feelings. And then they marry wives. And women are trained to express their feelings. They're supposed to. So what happens? The man pipes his feelings into the woman to express for him. So he sits there and he's acting all cool. I'm cool. It doesn't bother me, blah, blah, blah. And the wife is like freaking out and upset and angry with his boss and feeling sad and all this other business. And it's not hers, it's his. Really? Let him process his own emotions. Let him connect. He has a body. Let him process his own. Don't you take it on.
Good point.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere, right?
All right, my friend. Well, I am so excited that we're going to be doing this. You guys have a couple weeks to get your act together. Again, we want to make sure you go and check out what your Enneagram type is. If you don't know how to do muscle testing, make sure you watch the video on that. And if you have any problems, any questions, you can certainly write Dr. Judith's office at info@hblu.org, or you can write my office at info@thebodychannel.com if you have any further questions. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Judith, for doing this. I'm so grateful.
For lighting a fire under me.
Thank you to everybody out there for putting up with us. And we hope to see you here in a couple of weeks. See ya.
Bye.